Medieval Medieval India, chapter number 1, page number 2. Growth of feudalism. A new type of society and a new system of government rose in Western Europe. Following the breakup of the Roman Empire, the new order that gradually emerged is called feudalism. That is derived from the Latin word feudum, which translated into English as fief. In this society, the most powerful elements were the chiefs who, with their military following, dominated large tracts of land and also played an important part in government. The king was just like one of the more powerful feudal chiefs. In course of time, the monarchy became stronger and an attempt was made to limit the power of the chiefs. One method of doing so was that the king swore the chiefs to an oath of loyalty to him as his vassals in return recognized the tract of land dominated by the chiefs as their fiefs. The chiefs in turn could appoint sub-chiefs as vassals and allot tract out of their fief to them. The king could in theory resume the fief of a disloyal vassal, but in practice this was rarely done. Thus, in the feudal system, government was dominated by a landed aristocracy. The aristocracy was hereditary and tried its best not to admit outsiders to its fold. But it was never a completely closed aristocracy. This was the feudal system in the broadest outline. There are many similarities between this system and the system of government and society evolved by Turks in Central Asia and by the Rajputs in India. As the system developed, it assumed various forms in different countries due to differences in conditions and traditions. In Europe, the feudal system is associated with two other features. First is the system of serfdom. A serf was a peasant who worked on the land but could not change his profession or migrate to any other area or marry without the permission of his landlord or master. Associated with this was the system of manor. The manor was the house or castle where the lord lived. In many of the European countries, large tracts of land were owned by the lords of these manors. A part of the land was cultivated by the lord directly with the help of serfs who had to divide their time between cultivating their own fields and the fields of their master. Since the land belonged theoretically to the lord, the serf has to pay him other dues in cash and kind. The lord of the manor also had the responsibility of maintaining law and order, dispensing justice, etc. Since there was a great deal of lawlessness in those days, even free peasants were sometimes prepared to accept the vassals of the lord and of the manor in return for protection. Some historians think that the system of serfdom and the manor system are vital parts of the feudalism and that it is wrong to speak of feudalism for the societies in which these two do not exist. In India, for instance, there was no serfdom and no manor system as such. But the local landed elements, the Samantas, exercised many of the powers of the feudal lords, and the peasantry was in dependent position to them. In other words, what mattered was not whether the peasantry was formally free, but the manner and the extent in which it could exercise its freedom. In many countries of Western Europe, the manor system and the system of labor dues by the peasants disappeared after the 14th century. The second feature associated with the feudal system in Europe is the system of military organization. The most typical symbol of the feudal system was the armored knight on horseback. Actually, the system of cavalry warfare can roughly be traced back to Europe only to the 8th century. In the Roman times, the chief's wings of the army were the heavy and the light infantry armed with long spears and short swords. Horses were used to draw chariots in those which officers rode. It is generally believed that the mode of warfare changed with the arrival of the Arabs. The Arabs had large supply of horses and their swift movements and mounted archers made the infantry useless. The problems of developing and maintaining the organization needed for new mode of warfare helped in the growth of feudalism in Europe. No king could hope to maintain out of his own resources in the large body of cavalry needed and to provide them with armor and equipment. Hence, the army was decentralized, assigning to the fief holders and responsibility of maintaining a fixed force of cavalry and infantry for the service of the king. Cavalry warfare became the principal mode of warfare on account of two inventions which, though much older, began to be used on a large scale during this period. The first was the iron stirrup. The iron stirrup made it possible for a heavily armored person to ride on a horse without falling off. It also made possible a cavalry charge with lances held tightly to the body without the rider being thrown off by the shock of the impact. In earlier devices, it was either a wooden stirrup or a piece of rope which only provided a toe hold. Thus, it was now difficult for the infantry to face the charge of heavy cavalry. The second invention was the new type of harness which enabled a horse to draw twice the amount of load it pulled earlier. It is believed that both these inventions came into Europe from the east, possibly from East Asia, and that they spread in India from the 10th century onwards. Thus, many factors, political, economic, and military, were responsible for the growth of feudalism in Europe. Even when the strong governments emerged after 11th century, the traditions had become too strong for the king to easily reduce the power of the feudal chiefs. Thank you everyone for tuning in. In the next part, we'll start with the next paragraph. All the best for exams, and do share and subscribe the channel for more videos like this. Thank you and keep supporting us.